You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Michael Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
And how are you? This is Mike Lodge for the WBT, and today we're talking about taxes. Well, I'm sitting here in my home in South Carolina, and I'm waiting for a big, huge storm to hit. It's supposed to be one of the worst hurricanes ever to hit the South Carolina or the Carolinas shores and state. So on my computer, I must have at least 3 screens showing where the location of the hurricane is, when it's supposed to hit, what are the wind speeds, and what's going to happen when it gets to my part of South Carolina. And I tell you, when you talk to people, you get all sorts of different things. Some people have been through this process before, so they know that just to pack the car, just in case, just to be able to get out of town. Others are panicking like they've never gone through anything bad before in their life. And then there's me, who I've been through typhoons, I have been through hurricanes, and so I'm just sitting here watching the numbers. And the lower the speed of the winds, the less I'm concerned. The other thing is that it's supposed to be one of the wettest hurricanes, with rains coming down in torrents. In some places they'll get up to 40 inches of rain. But where I live, it's telling me that by the time it gets to me on Sunday and Monday, we'll probably get about 2 to 5 inches of rain. Now, hurricanes have a mind of their own. They have this whole life where they just love to go through communities and destroy. So I will continue monitoring my screens and live through it. I went through one last summer, and the winds got heavy, but it did no damage on my property. Now, old trees sometimes can't take this wind, and I know my neighbor next door, her tree split in 2. So it can do that. And then another tree. The only other tree that I saw that came out was this huge pine tree, and it literally pulled it up by its roots. You could literally see the roots of the tree, but it laid it gently down in a pasture. So I think that when you go through hurricanes, you have to have a little bit of sense of humor. Listen, I have been through typhoons where I have seen the water come down and then go right back up into the sky because of the force of the wind. And I have seen signs fall. I have seen everything. I remember in one time in Taiwan, I flew into Taiwan and I landed in the eye of the storm. And it was calm. But by the time I got to my hotel, it was picking up. So when I got to my hotel, I went to the restroom, and my bathtub was filled with water. And the reason why is in case you have water available to you, and they were so nice that they put it in my bathtub. So, listen, I have been in the worst typhoon that Japan has ever had. Well, literally, it pushed me across the road to the subway station. I didn't even have to use any energy. I have been through so many typhoons and so many hurricanes now that I now just watch the numbers and stay in a safe place. Hunker down if you can. Ride through it. Last year, when we had the hurricane here that came up from the Gulf, I lost power in my house for 3 days, and I also lost my cell communication. They knocked down the tower. But when you put a big old skinny tower up in the sky, something's going to come down when the wind gets strong enough. So that's enough about the hurricane. I'm done with it. I mean, I'm going to have to live through it for the next few days here, so let's not talk about it anymore. Let's talk about some tax issues and the things that you can still do on your tax return. One of the biggest changes, the new tax law under the Tax Reform Act brings in near doubling of the standard deduction to $12,000 on single returns, and $18,000 for head of household filers, and $24,000 on joint returns. So that came up from $6,350, $9,350, and $12,700 in 2017. So it really increased considerably. Individuals age 65 or older and blind people continue to get an additional standard deduction of $1,300 more per person, with $1,600 if unmarried. So things have gone up. Now they have a purpose for this. So congressional analysts looked at this, and they say bulking up the standard deduction will let more than 30 million taxpayers avoid the hassle of itemizing write-offs on their tax return, because the bigger standard deduction would exceed the qualifying expenses. But then there's a handful of tax breaks that people taking the standard deduction can still claim to lower their tax bills. That's why you need a really good tax practitioner to help you on this, because there are other things that you can do to help you out. Most of these so-called, what they call above-the-line deductions, have no income limits, so anybody can claim them. And in addition to the direct tax savings from these breaks for taxpayers in the 24% tax bracket, for instance, every $1,000 in above-the-line deductions will lower your tax bill by $240. Your lowered AGI could enable you to claim after-tax breaks that have income limits. Some of you, almost everyone, should take advantage of these tax breaks. Others as well, a bit obscure. One of the above-the-line tax breaks is the individual retirement account. Contributing to a traditional individual retirement account, or an IRA, is a win-win move that lets you boost your retirement savings and trim your tax bill at the same time. The contribution limit is $5,500, $6,500 if you're 50 or older for 2018. And if you don't have a retirement plan at work or your spouse does, every dollar of that can be knocked off your income. If you're covered by a retirement plan at the office or your spouse is, then that deduction might be limited by your income. You need to check with your tax practitioner and find out what that limitation is. The other issue is a health savings account. Now, I don't know if I have any clients that have come in that have a health savings account. I can't remember. After you do hundreds of tax returns, you kind of forget what you've done. Excuse me, I have a cough. So, if you are funding a health savings account, or which is called an HSA, in conjunction with a high deductible health plan, or HDHP, then you made a smart move. You get an above-the-line deduction for contributions to the HSA, assuming you made them with after-tax money. If you contributed pre-tax funds through payroll deductions on the job, There's no double dipping. So no write-off. In either case, you need to file a Form 8889 with your tax return. The maximum contribution for 2018 is $6,900 for family coverage and $3,450 if you're an individual and you're 55 or over at any time in the year. You can contribute and deduct another $1,000. Talk to your tax practitioner about an HSA. Now, those of you who are self-employed, and what are the deductions that you can take? If you work for yourself, you have to pay both the employer and the employee share of Social Security and Medicare taxes, a whopping 15.3% of net self-employment income. But at least you get to write off half of what you pay as an adjustment to income. You can also deduct contributions to a self-directed retirement plan, such as a SEP or simple plan, and those can cut big chunks off your income. Also deductible as an adjustment to income, the cost of health insurance for the self-employed and their families, including Medicare premiums and supplemental Medicare or Medigap, up to your business net income. You can't claim this deduction if you are eligible to be covered under a health plan subsidized either by your employer, if you have a job, as well as your little business, or your spouse's employer if he or she has a job that offers family medical coverage. Again, sit down with your tax practitioner and talk about these things, or call them and talk about these things before the end of the tax year so you can take advantage of some of these above-the-line deductions. Now, alimony has changed, okay? You can deduct alimony you pay to a former spouse as long as the monetary payments are spelled out in the divorce agreement. You must report your ex-spouse's Social Security number to the IRS, and that is so that the IRS can make sure he or she reports the same amount as taxable income. Child support, however, is not deductible. The new tax law eliminates this deduction for agreements signed after December 31st, 2018. For agreements signed before then, the deduction continues. But if you're going to get a divorce after 2018 and you've got that divorce decree, it's gone. No longer. It's a bye-bye. Again, sit down with your tax practitioner and think these things through. Then we have educational costs up to $2,500 in student loan interest for you, your spouse, or a dependent can be tax deductible on 2018 returns. If your modified adjusted gross income is less than $65,000 and you're single, or $135,000 if you are married and file a joint return, the deduction is phased out above those levels, disappearing completely if you earn more than $80,000 if single, or $165,000 if filing a joint return. If you've never heard of the educational expense before, you better talk to somebody. Talk to your tax practitioner or call our office at 888-681-1518 and someone will be able to help you. Business expenses. So the tax reform that was passed by Congress did away with almost all employee deductions that were taken on Schedule A by itemizers, by you guys that itemize. But in certain lines of work, under certain conditions, you can still knock off some of those costs above the line. Here are those niches, okay? If you're a school teacher and you buy supplies with your classroom, the educator expense deduction lets educators write off up to $250 each year. Remember that number, $250 each year's teacher of such expenses. If they teach kindergarten through 12th grade and put at least 900 hours a year on the job, you don't have to be a teacher to claim this break. Aides, counselors, and principals may claim it if they have the receipts to back it up. For homeschoolers, sorry, you're out of luck. You don't get to deduct that. So remember, teachers, I know a lot of you have been taking thousands of dollars of this deduction on your personal income tax as a business employer business expense. But for this year, it's limited to $250. Okay? If you're in the Army Reserve and you travel to drills, you must travel more than 100 miles from home and be able and be away from home overnight. So you have to travel 100 miles from home and be away from home overnight. If you qualify, you can deduct the cost of lodging and meals following the federal per diem schedule, plus an allowance for driving your own car. For 2018 travel, the rate is 54.5 cents per mile, plus what you paid for parking fees and tolls. That's if you're in the Army Reserve. The other item is if you're a performing artist making less than $16,000. Sorry, Beyonce, not for you. The IRS will expect you to show that at least 2 employers paid you $200 each for your services, and that the expenses you intend to deduct are more than 10% of what you made from performing. Note that the IRS specifies employers and wage income. Payment for gigs doesn't count, further limiting the number of people who might be able to claim it. So if you're making less than that $16,000 as an entertainer a year, then you have some leeway. So if you're disabled and you have a job and incur expenses that allow you to work, here is an example from the IRS. You're deaf and you use a sign language interpreter during meetings while you're at work. That's deductible. Okay? So think about that. Discuss that with your tax practitioner of your disabilities and when you work at your job. If you're a fee-based public official and want to write off job expenses, this does not mean people employed by any government. Rather, it's for individuals such as a notary public who perform a public function and are paid directly by the people they serve. If you meet that definition, you can deduct the work-related expenses like ink pads and whatever else that has to do with your job as a notary. I'm sure that means the books and the stamps and whatever else. Early withdrawal penalties. Did you break into a certificate of deposit CD early and get slapped by a bank penalty? Bank penalties can vary widely, but one thing is constant. You can deduct the penalty no matter how lenient or how stiff. As an adjustment to income is the way that you deduct it. A Form 1099 INT or Form 1099 OID from the bank will show the amount of any penalty you paid. Talk to your tax practitioner when you get there. Okay? Now we get to moving expenses when you change jobs. The new tax law killed this break. But with one significant exception. If you're in the armed forces, the cost of any move associated with a permanent change of station still qualifies. You can deduct the cost of getting yourself and your household goods to the new location. If you drove your own car for a move in 2018, deduct 18 cents a mile plus what you paid for parking and tolls. Use Form 3903 to tally your moving deductions. Now, who gets this? Our great people at the armed forces if you're moving. Sorry, it's gone for everybody else. So those are some of the issues that you should be thinking about when you have discussions with your tax practitioner. Because if you're not taking those above line deductions, you're not saving yourself any money. But this is what I get upset about with people is that there is a tax law and there are tax codes that you can use. And if you don't use them, you're stupid. And all of you people who are talking about Trump and he takes this deduction and that deduction, he can under the IRS tax code and under the laws passed by Congress. Get that through our heads. If there's a tax code that can be used legitimately for you, you use it. It's given to you by the U.S. government to use. So I encourage all of you, sit down with your tax practitioners, call them on the phone, send them an email, and talk about some of these things so that you are taking the right deductions, the right items that is under the code that can help you on your tax return. It's not rocket science. It's just a tax code that's heavily complicated. That's why you need to talk to your tax practitioner. If you have any questions, send me an email at mlodge@lodge-co.com, and I will try and answer the question, or I will certainly find the answer to the question, and I will respond to you. And those of you who are thinking about your 2018 tax return, good for you. Get it done. Collect all the data now. You've only got about 3 more months until the end of the year. 3 more months. Don't wait until the last moment. This is Mike Lodge. I'll talk with you very, very soon.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
World of Business and Taxes on WBT.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.